Chapter 1: The Shadow in the Rear-View Mirror of History. Imagine, if you will, a world before the history books began. A world not of primitive hunter-gatherers huddling in caves, but a world of shimmering marble, advanced mathematics, and a global maritime network that spanned the known and unknown worlds. For most of modern history, we have been taught that civilization is a linear progression, that we started with nothing and slowly, painfully climbed the ladder to the smartphone in your pocket. But what if that ladder has missing rungs? What if humanity has reached the summit before, only to be kicked back down into the dirt by the very planet we call home? This is the haunting allure of Atlantis. It is not just a story about a sunken city. It is a story about the fragility of the human race. It is the ultimate what if. If a civilization as grand as the one described by Plato could be wiped off the face of the earth in a single day and night, what does that say about us? For over 2,000 years, the name Atlantis has been whispered in the halls of academia, shouted by treasure hunters in the middle of the Atlantic, and analyzed by satellite imagery in the heart of the Sahara. Today, we aren't just looking for ruins, we are looking for the truth. Chapter 2: The Genesis of the Ghost, Plato's Dialogues. To understand Atlantis, we must first understand the man who gave it to us. In approximately 360 BCE, the Greek philosopher Plato wrote two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. In these writings, he introduces Atlantis not as a myth, but as a historical account passed down through his family. Plato tells us that his ancestor, the great statesman Solon, traveled to Egypt around 590 BCE. While there, in the city of Sais, Solon met with high priests who laughed at the Greeks for being children with no memory of the distant past. The priests showed Solon ancient temple records that spoke of a mighty power that existed 9,000 years before their time. The geography of greatness. According to these records, Atlantis was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we know today as the Strait of Gibraltar. It was a massive island, larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined. This wasn't just a city, it was a continent-sized empire. Plato's description is hauntingly specific. He describes the capital city as a marvel of engineering. It was built in concentric circles, 3 rings of water and 2 of land, perfectly symmetrical. In the very center sat a citadel, a holy mountain where the palace stood. This palace was a riot of color. Stones quarried from the earth were red, black, and white. The walls were coated in precious metals, brass, tin, and the legendary orichalcum, a metal that flashed like fire. The city was a hub of global trade. A massive canal, 300 feet wide and 100 feet deep, connected the outer ring of water to the open sea, allowing the world's greatest navy to dock at the city's heart. Imagine the sound of thousands of sailors speaking a dozen different languages, the smell of exotic spices, and the sight of triremes with gilded prows reflecting the Mediterranean sun. Chapter 3: The Golden Age and the Fall. But why did it disappear? Plato explains that the Atlanteans were originally virtuous. They were the children of Poseidon, the god of the sea, and for many generations they prized wisdom and virtue above gold. But as the divine portion of their blood became diluted through interbreeding with mortals, they became infected with unrighteous ambition and power. They became an expansionist empire. They conquered North Africa and reached as far as the borders of Italy and Egypt. Only one city stood in their way, ancient Athens. According to Plato, the Athenians led a heroic resistance, liberating the enslaved nations. Then the gods intervened. Zeus, seeing the corruption of the Atlanteans, gathered the gods to deliver a judgment. And here is where the text of the Critias ends abruptly, literally in mid-sentence, as if the story itself was swallowed by the sea. We know the ending from the Timaeus. But afterwards there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea.
Chapter 4: The Skeptics and the Philosophical Fiction. For the majority of modern history, mainstream archaeology has dismissed Atlantis as a noble lie. They argue that Plato invented the story to illustrate his ideal version of a state. In this view, Atlantis is the bad guy in a political morality play designed to make Athens look like the hero. The skeptics point out several problems. The date, 9,000 years before Solon, puts the fall of Atlantis at roughly 11,600 years ago. At that time, according to standard history, humans were supposed to be primitive hunter-gatherers, not architects of concentric stone cities. The size. An island larger than Libya and Asia combined should leave a massive geological footprint on the ocean floor. The lack of evidence. No contemporary Greek or Egyptian records, aside from Plato's account, explicitly mention Atlantis by that name. However, the myth argument has a major flaw. Plato went to great lengths to insist the story was true in every particular. He wasn't known for writing fiction. He was a philosopher obsessed with the nature of reality. Why lie so specifically? Chapter 5. The Volcano That Shook the World, the Minoan Theory. If Atlantis was real, but Plato got the date or the size wrong, where could it be? The most popular scientific theory points to the island of Santorini, then known as Thera. In the Bronze Age, the Minoan civilization was the jewel of the Mediterranean. They had indoor plumbing, stunning frescoes of leaping dolphins, and a navy that ruled the waves. They were, by all accounts, the most Atlantean people of their time. Around 1600 BCE, the volcano at the heart of Santorini erupted with a force 40,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. The center of the island collapsed into the magma chamber, creating a massive caldera. The resulting tsunamis, some estimated to be 50 feet high, raced across the sea and slammed into the coast of Crete, wiping out the Minoan ports. To the Egyptians who traded with the Minoans, it would have seemed as if a great empire simply vanished overnight. When Solon heard this story 1,000 years later, did he misinterpret the Egyptian numbers? If you divide Plato's 9,000 years by 10, you get 900 years, which lands almost exactly on the date of the Santorini eruption. Chapter 6. The Eye of the Sahara, a New Frontier. In recent years, a new candidate has emerged that has captured the imagination of millions: the Richat structure in Mauritania, West Africa. Also known as the Eye of the Sahara, this geological formation is a series of massive concentric rings visible from space. For decades, geologists thought it was an impact crater from a meteor. Now they believe it is a domal uplift that has eroded over millions of years. But look at the details. The shape. It is a series of concentric rings of land and water, or where water used to be. The size. The diameter of the outer ring is approximately 23.5 kilometers. Plato's measurement for the main city was 127 stadia, which converts almost exactly to 23.5 kilometers. The mountains. Plato said the city was protected by mountains to the north. The Richat structure is bordered to the north by a stunning mountain range. The freshwater. Plato mentioned freshwater springs in the center of the city. Modern surveys of the Richat structure have found evidence of ancient aquifers and springs. But wait, isn't the Sahara a desert? 11,600 years ago it wasn't. This was the African humid period. The Sahara was a lush, green landscape filled with lakes, rivers, and hippos. Satellite imagery shows massive paleo rivers flowing right past the Richat structure toward the Atlantic Ocean. Could the Atlantis we are looking for be high and dry in the desert? If a massive meltwater pulse from the end of the Ice Age swept across the continent, it would have scoured the city to its foundations, leaving nothing but the bedrock rings we see today.
Chapter 7. The Younger Dryas, the Smoking Gun? Let's talk about that date again. 11,600 years ago. For a long time, historians laughed at this date, but modern geology has discovered something terrifying. Right around that time, the Earth exited the last ice age with a violent, catastrophic shudder. This period is known as the Younger Dryas. The theory, championed by researchers like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, suggests that a fragmented comet struck the North American ice sheet. This caused an instantaneous melting of billions of tons of ice. The resulting megafloods would have raised sea levels globally by hundreds of feet in a matter of weeks, not centuries. If Atlantis was a maritime civilization built on a coastline or a low-lying island, it wouldn't have just flooded. It would have been obliterated by a wall of water hundreds of feet high, traveling at hundreds of miles per hour. The muddy shoals Plato described that made the ocean impassable after the disaster, that would be the debris and silt left behind by a global cataclysm. Chapter 8. Beyond the Pillars, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. If we take Plato literally, we have to look in the Atlantic Ocean. The Azores Islands sit directly on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, where 3 tectonic plates meet. In 1948, Swedish researchers found core samples from the bottom of the Atlantic that contained freshwater diatoms, microscopic organisms that only live in fresh water. These were found 2 miles below the ocean surface. How did they get there? The only explanation is that the land they lived on was once above sea level. Some theorists suggest that a microcontinent existed in the Atlantic. As the tectonic plates shifted or as sea levels rose at the end of the Ice Age, this landmass could have subsided into the ocean. While we haven't found a sunken city there yet, we have found strange things. In 2013, Brazilian and Japanese geologists found continental granite on the seabed, rock that only forms on dry land, not on the ocean floor. Chapter 9. The Cultural Echo. Why Everyone Has an Atlantis. One of the most compelling arguments for the reality of Atlantis isn't found in the dirt, but in our stories. Almost every ancient culture on Earth has a great flood myth. The Sumerians have the story of Utnapishtim, the Hebrews had Noah, the Hindus had Manu, the indigenous tribes of the Americas speak of a white city or an island in the east that was destroyed by water. Why do these stories all share the same DNA? Why do they all describe a golden age followed by a watery apocalypse sent by the gods? It's as if humanity is suffering from a collective case of PTSD. We are a species with amnesia, trying to remember a mother civilization that was lost before we learned how to write. If Atlantis was the hub of a global network, its survivors would have fled to the highlands, the mountains of Mexico, the peaks of the Andes, the plateau of Giza. They would have brought with them the seeds of civilization, agriculture, masonry, and astronomy. This would explain why pyramids suddenly appear all over the world at roughly the same time, despite these cultures supposedly having no contact with one another.
Chapter 10. The Modern Search. Technology versus Tradition. We are currently living in the golden age of archaeology. With LiDAR, light detection and ranging, we can see through the thickest jungles of the Amazon and the sands of the Sahara. In recent years, LiDAR has revealed thousands of hidden structures in the Mayan jungle, cities we never knew existed. It's only a matter of time before we turn these tools toward the most likely Atlantis candidates. We are also using deep-sea submersibles that can withstand the crushing pressure of the Atlantic Trench. We are looking for anomalies, geometric shapes that nature doesn't make, right angles, perfect circles, the scars of a civilization. Chapter 11. What if we find it? Suppose tomorrow a headline breaks, "Ruins of Atlantis discovered." What would that change? It would change everything. It would mean that we are not the first advanced humans. It would mean that our grip on this planet is far more tenuous than we like to admit. It would prove that history is not a straight line, but a cycle of rising, falling, and beginning again. Atlantis serves as a mirror. When we look into the deep blue of the ocean, we aren't just looking for an old city. We are looking for ourselves. We are looking for our origins and perhaps a warning about our future. In an age of climate change and rising sea levels, the story of a civilization that ignored the warnings of the gods, or nature, feels uncomfortably relevant. Chapter 12. The Journey Continues. Is Atlantis real? If you mean a literal island called Atlantis exactly as Plato described, perhaps not. But if you mean a highly advanced pre-Ice Age civilization that was destroyed by a global cataclysm, then the evidence is mounting every single day. The ruins may be buried under 2 miles of Atlantic sediment, or they may be the very foundations of the pyramids we see today. The truth is out there, waiting for the right explorer, the right technology, or the right moment in history to reveal itself. Until then, Atlantis remains the world's greatest ghost story. It is the city that refuses to stay dead. It lives in our dreams, our movies, and our deep-seated desire to know where we came from. As the sun sets over the Pillars of Hercules, we can almost see the reflection of the golden towers of Atlantis on the horizon, a reminder that some secrets are too great to stay hidden forever. Final word. The mystery of Atlantis is a journey that spans the entire globe, from the heights of the Andes to the depths of the Atlantic. It challenges our understanding of who we are and where we are going. Whether it was a real place or a powerful metaphor, its message remains clear. We must respect the power of the world we live on, for the sea gives and the sea takes away. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mysteries of the Lost Empire and want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe. Your support allows us to keep digging, keep questioning, and keep exploring the greatest legends of our time. What do you think? Is Atlantis hidden in the Sahara, or is it at the bottom of the ocean? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next exploration.